Hi, my name is Ruby Graupera. I was born in Cuba and was raised in New Jersey. I am currently living in South Florida, where I've been here about 20 years, quite a Floridian now. How my story begins during my second childbirth, birth of my daughter, September 23rd, 2014, 9 years now. And we had a scheduled C-section for that day. This pregnancy happened to be my second pregnancy to full term. And it actually was a great pregnancy. I didn't have anything going on with this pregnancy. I was very healthy. The baby was healthy. All my checkups were healthy. Scheduled C-section, the father of my children. And, my sister decided to go, her husband, my mom, randomly, a lot of my family was there that day. And, everything was as usual, as you would think. My doctor happened to be, I think he happened to be actually like something had changed or he was sick that day and he almost didn't make it. I was a little upset. I remember that. But all in all, I was so excited. I was welcoming my second child, my little girl, and it kind of was like a completion of a dream. The C-section was scheduled for early that morning on the 23rd of 2014. And once the C-section started, everything was perfect. During the C-section, while they were taking my baby out, I remember having at some point that I was congested and feeling a little bit like I couldn't breathe. And I remember looking to Dr. Panor and say, hey, I feel a little like I can't breathe. Maybe it's like allergies. And he's like, oh, no worries. And I remember him asking me what I was taking and, whatever he gave me, like Benadryl, all good. I was calm. I remember them taking the baby out and I remember hearing, it was at 12:36, the time when the baby was born. I remember hearing her cry and then putting her on me. That was kind of like the last thing I remembered. Once I saw her face, I remember just dozing off. It was like how they tell me that I had a C-section, as I mentioned, and they had closed me up and I was ready for recovery. So they had wheeled me into recovery. When I get to the recovery, Dr. Panor and the nurse that was there, Nurse Julie, said, I guess they were connecting me with whatever my oxygen. They realized my oxygen level was I want to say it was 2%. If I don't, I might be saying that number off, but I know it was like not breathing. So they rushed me back into the OR. And, they rushed me back into the OR really quickly and started working on me, figuring out they intubated me right away because I went into full respiratory arrest. And I was not breathing for longer than 3 hours, I want to say, according to the records. I may be off in minutes or some sort. And then during that time, my heartbeat stopped. When my heartbeat stopped, they started compressions for a 45-minute period. I want to say there were 2 doctors and a nurse helping, assisting. Finally, they used the electric little things and they used that, more than 6 times. They continued to work on me for that extension of 40-something minutes. They generally don't work for that long. Obviously, my family was there and it was like an amazing situation, the birth of my daughter and how happy it turned into a life-threatening experience where my life was threatened. After 45 minutes, the doctors were all in the room. They called my family in and they told my family, we don't know what else to do. And all the specialists of the whole hospital, cardiologists, all sorts were in there. And the head of the hospital asked around and looked around and said, is there anything that we have not done, any treatment, anything that we have not done that could be done as the last resource? And to my understanding, according to all the doctors and everybody that I've spoken to, the room was silent. There was nothing else that could be done from a doctor, medical standpoint, from a human standpoint. During that time, my family, my niece and my sister was screaming in my ears. I've always had this little saying when man fails because he can no longer do, there's a mystery to life. God, a higher source had to take over. And my sister was screaming in my ear and saying, Ruby, remember when you said when men stops, God begins. And she pretty much screamed it with full force, telling me, my sister said, okay, stop. It's time to stop. There's nothing men can do. Everybody said their goodbyes and they went outside. My gynecologist was there. All the doctors were there. I believe inside of the room with me, they had stopped their efforts. I believe there was a nurse and I don't know if it was a doctor or a technician to the machines that were there, but everyone was outside with my family crying, asking, praying. My sister was out there leading in prayer and asking, God, give us the strength to raise my Santiago and, my little baby that was born and Tylee, and help us raise them because they were in shock. During that time that they're praying and asking God for strength, I was inside about, several minutes past, 8-10 minutes, uncertain of the time. I think they said it's a full about 55-56 minutes that my heart was not beating. And to make a long story short, that's full of amazing details. While they were disconnecting me taking there to send me, I'm assuming, to the morgue and all that. There was a heartbeat in the machine. It was like a beep in the heart machine. And that one doctor or technician that was in there said, oh no, that can't be. It must be a mistake. So as they're getting closer to look, it continues to go off and my heart continues to beat on its own. And the nurse runs out and tells everybody as they're praying, as they're asking God for favor, for grace to raise, my children. She runs out and says, keep praying. Her heart started beating on its own. And my family was like, oh my God, obviously it's a big win. Obviously everybody asked, what did you see? Yes, I had an afterlife experience. And I've had a lot of time to think about what that means. As I was transitioning during that time that they were working on me, I felt my body. It was my body, but my spirit and my soul, I felt it flowing. I didn't have a body. I didn't have like legs. I didn't feel arms, but I was flowing in all my essence. And through this thing that felt like a passageway, it was all around me. Kind of like everybody says a tunnel, but it didn't feel like it was far. The space felt very close. And I was flowing through this, and I wouldn't say the end, but like at the tip of it or the end, I guess, the entranceway, there was a spiritual being of light. And as I encountered this spiritual being without physical words, just with pure understanding of, looking at each other. I don't even know if it was looking, but I remember seeing him. So it must be some sort of different way we see there, And he said to me, you're going to be here for a while, but you're not progressing. Like I wasn't going to progress. I was going to be there for a while, but it wasn't my time. And during that time that I was there, I got to experience amazing peace. Everybody asked me, I use the word peace, and I have said it many, many times. The word peace fails to explain. The human peace that we know of here fails to explain what I mean by peace. First of all, you don't feel like you are dead. You feel very much alive. You feel like you are going back home. You feel this warmth I explain a lot of like warmth because it's the things that I could explain it in human words. But if you could think about peace and warmth and this just all-knowing feeling that everything has a place, has a timing, A lot of people would tell me, oh, this is amazing that you came back. Wow, you must be special. And I think, yeah, perhaps I am. Perhaps I have a purpose that I'm here. But honestly, we all are. We have such an amazing purpose while we live here. Life is the dream. It's that little song, merrily, 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 but life is but the dream. Life is the dream. And when I was in that space, I felt like I was going home. I didn't feel death. I didn't feel scared. I wasn't worried about the children I had just left behind, the little baby I just had, my 7-year-old son. I wasn't worried about my mom. I wasn't worried about my sister. I didn't feel any of those things that we would feel here because the feeling there is, I call it all-knowing, but it's amazing. Obviously, I was sent back. I don't know that I wanted to come back, frankly. I was in awe, everything that I experienced in that space, in that place. I call it realm. Everybody wants to look up in the sky, but I don't see heaven like that. It's like a realm that we're just unable to see with this body, with this frequency that we live here in this earth, in this level. I want to say, yes, I believe in God and I am very spiritual and God is first in my life. I seek God daily, I do, but I'm not a religious human being. I don't know scientific words, but I can just say that being in that space felt like more like returning home than dying. So anyway, that's when I came back. I was induced in a coma because all my organs had restored itself. It was like that night around 10 o'clock at night is that I was hearing voices. The doctors were there. They hadn't given me so much sedation and medication and all that my legs felt really heavy. I could hear them and I wanted to move and I couldn't really move my body. I was probably just coming out of the coma, so everything felt really heavy. And I remember hearing the doctors, telling my sister, no, she's having involuntary movement because I was trying to kick my legs. I could hear them say, we don't know when she's going to come back. We don't know if she's going to be a vegetable. She was gone for a long time. We don't know what's going to happen. My sister had asked the doctor, doctor, what do you think? He was like, well, I don't know, maybe like 40, 50%. She's like, I'll take it. I'll take anything. She was like, if God allowed her to be back, it's for a reason and we'll take it. Long story short, it was like that. My sister got closer to my eyes, got near me and were like, Ruby, if you hear me, let me know. And I went, clear as day. And she said, oh, she hears us. she's gonna be okay. And I opened my eyes shortly a few minutes later. First of all, I was in shock because my room all of a sudden filled with everybody. Obviously, the news got out fast that, I died and all this stuff. My big fat Cuban family came from Miami, and I opened my eyes and everybody was just there, my immediate family and my family. And everybody was like with tears. I had just felt like I was waking up from giving birth to my daughter. At that moment, nothing, and it hadn't sunk in what had happened. It just felt like I had just given birth 20, 30 minutes ago, and maybe I was just waking up. At that moment, I was like excited. Everybody was like crying. And I thought it was like happy tears. At that moment, I was like, wow. But shortly realized soon enough that I was intubated and I couldn't speak. And I was trying, and then they put like these gloves so that I wouldn't, because they didn't know, I had gone into full respiratory and cardiac arrest. So they didn't know if my lungs would be working. They had no idea. And I was like trying to fight them. Like, why can't I talk? I had no idea at that moment. And my sister was like, yeah, she's going to be fine. It was like that. I still, by the way, hadn't seen my baby other than when they put her in birth. So I was wondering what had happened. I woke up like at 3, 4 in the morning hemorrhaging, because what had happened to me is I had an amniotic fluid embolism. And this condition happens, I believe it's a very, very rare condition and rarely happens. When it does, it generally takes the mom and the child, or sometimes the child and then the mom has several losses and many injuries because of this. So I feel extremely blessed to be here, obviously. The doctor came and I remember I was hemorrhaging and he said, well, because my C-section popped, he said, I can't give you anything, you just had your heart stopped. I can't give you any medication, no pain meds. And frankly, I felt nothing. I probably had gone through so much that I felt nothing. And around 6:30 in the morning, I could hear doctors like outside my ICU room. And I'm there awake and I'm just thinking of nothing. I was just like, oh, I'm wondering when they're going to take this off. And I'm hearing the doctors outside my room. And there's one doctor that comes that had happened to be in the room during the time where I was gone about 30 minutes. And they had been working on me for about that long. And he had to leave, I guess, to pick up his family. He comes back. He's like, there's no way she's alive. How could that be? I left her. She was so great. She was blue. I knew she was gone. And I hear them talking outside the room. I knew it was me. And I said, oh my God, they're talking about me. At that very moment, I was like, I died. Like everything came flying in. One of the doctors had walked in the room and he had been one of the doctors that had been there. I want to say he was very young and he was probably like in his 4th or 5th year. I'm not sure. And he walked in there and all I could say to him, because I couldn't speak yet, I was still intubated. All I could say is this to him, like, he's the reason I'm here, God, And shortly after that, they came and they took the intubation off. I was breathing fine on my own right away. My lungs were fine, miraculously. Everything was perfect. And so I guess I'm here to say that, miracles do exist, that we're here for a purpose. I do believe in predestination after this, because I definitely don't believe I'm better than anyone else and likely predestined to go through this. Be the ambassador of a modern day miracle. And it's become a blessing to live and see my children grow up. Many folks ask me, what has changed? And I think what has changed is that we second guess ourselves many times. I think that has changed. I'm certain of things a lot more. When I feel something, I know it to be true. Whereas before I would question the reasons why I'm a little bit more. A lot of people ask things like that, but I've always been a sensitive person. I've always had what many call a sixth sense. Perhaps that's how, came out from a love from God, a love for spiritual things, a love to find the connection of who we are, right? I feel like we're here during this time with a purpose. Everyone that is alive has a purpose, and we're here to choose wisely. I do feel and believe that we have the ability to create and make changes. We are co-creators. We can make decisions to create a better future for ourselves, for others. Now I'm so convinced we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And so a lot of people walk many years this earth and take many long time to realize that we don't have to seek outside of ourselves to find happiness. It truly is all in here. And I guess you gotta just be careful what you fill your temple with, what you fill your mind with and your time with. That's kind of my only advice to folks, is try to be better human for yourself and others. Don't waste your time here. This time here is limited and there's a reason you're here. Try to find out what that's for, what that is. Go after it and don't be afraid. Take more chances. That's been my own personal model too, taking more chances. Obviously, wise ones, but yeah. And that's a bit it. And that's how I'm here. And I'm very grateful to be here.